Welcome this evening to the Take Shape for Life Habits of Health support call. I'm Shirley Mast. I'm a certified health coach with Take Shape for Life, and it is my pleasure to host this call for you this evening. Now, if this is your first time joining a Habits of Health call, a special welcome to you. This call is for all Take Shape for Life clients, coaches, and health professionals, so you might hear questions and comments from any of the above. And if you don't fit into one of those categories and you're simply interested in learning more about our programs, how to create better health, you're warmly welcome too. You might also hear content that's geared towards those that are in the weight loss phase of their health journey, those that are in transition, and those that are in the optimization phase, moving towards a lifetime of optimal health. Take Shape for Life offers excellent tools and support for weight loss, but we also have a lot to offer to anyone who's looking for better health in any area of life. So if you're in the weight loss phase, maybe you're on our 5-in-1 structured meal plan, please be sure to follow the guidelines that have been set up for you as guided by your free health coach. Now, for those of you that are listening to the recording later, we are so glad you've taken the time, and we invite you to join us live the next time to be part of the discussion. So if you need that Zoom number one last time, those of you on the phone, go to zoom.us. Meeting ID is 648-511-733. Now, if it sounded like I was rushing through all that housekeeping stuff at the beginning, it's because I'm really excited about what I've got for you guys this evening. Our guest speaker tonight is Nick Frye. He is a licensed clinical professional counselor and national certified counselor specializing in addictions, disordered eating, motivation, and health behavior change. He received his master's degree in counseling psychology from Loyola University, Maryland, and currently provides coaching and counseling support for Take Shape for Life. We feel very blessed to have him as part of our optimal health community. Nick has been in the behavioral health field for 10 years, working in outpatient clinics, private practice, and community mental health centers before finding his true calling of helping others lose weight and get healthy. He tells me he is a fervent comic book reader, an avid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, and a zealous thesaurus user. I do hope this evening, Nick, we don't have to dig out our thesauruses. Actually, for those of you that have heard Nick speak, know that he's a very compelling speaker. And Nick, I'm gonna turn this over to you. I know you have some information you'd like to open with at the beginning, and then I do have some questions that people have sent to me already. I don't know if we'll have time for additional questions afterwards or not, but for right now, Nick, go ahead and take it away. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the warm welcome, Shirley. I really appreciate that. As she said, my name is Nick Frye, and I've got a special guest with me tonight. This is Matthew. He's my Chihuahua. He says hi as well. Hi, everybody. He's chilling with me tonight. So as Shirley said, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a brief little discussion about something I think is going to be really helpful for everybody, and then I'm going to answer some questions. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is actually dealing with self-sabotage. Now, many people struggle with self-sabotage, and that leads them off track and back to old, unhealthy behaviors. But where does this come from, and more importantly, how do we deal with it? Well, let's talk about the inner critic. You all probably know the inner critic, right? It's that voice that speaks to your self-doubt, your fear. The inner critic says things like, I made a mistake, the whole day is ruined, or I'm completely out of control, or I'm gonna screw up and I'm gonna lose all that I've worked really hard to achieve. And when we listen to that voice, we hear people from our past, information that we've taken in telling us that we're not good enough, beautiful enough, smart enough, thin enough, etc. The inner critic destroys our self-confidence and causes us to return to old, unhealthy behavior. Now, here's the thing. The problem is not that our inner critic exists. Everyone has one. Problems come when we get caught up or carried away by what it says, letting it dictate our actions, basically letting it tell us what to do. So we can't get rid of our inner critic or yell at it to go away. That actually only makes it more powerful because we're giving it attention. So here's how to deal with the inner critic more effectively, and it's a technique that you're probably familiar with. It's called Stop, Challenge, Choose. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Dr. A's Stop, Challenge, Choose, and we're actually going to apply it to how to deal with our inner critic, or that voice inside of our head that tells us that we're not good enough or we made a mistake and everything's ruined. So first we stop, we take a breath, and we recognize that what we're saying or thinking is the inner critic. Know ahead of time what are some of your inner critic's favorite lines, like, I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve this, or I made a mistake, so everything's ruined. There's typical things that our inner critic says to us all the time. Then step 2 is challenge, right? You want to challenge your inner critic by labeling it. I like to say something like, aha, that's my inner critic, not me. Remind yourself that your inner critic doesn't represent what you truly want. Because if you're on Tincture for Life, or you're thinking about it, you're a client, you're a health coach, probably what you truly want is optimal health. So you have to remind yourself, you challenge that by saying your inner critic is not you. Then the third step is choose. You choose to let the inner critic be. There's no need to argue with it or refute what it says. In fact, again, attention only gives it power. This does not make the inner critic go away. Remember, that's impossible, but paying less attention to it causes it to shrink and lose power. So once you choose to just kind of let it be, allow it to be there, then you can return to the present moment and focus on the here and now and really do what matters. So when you can recognize and deal with that inner critic by using stop, challenge, choose, so it doesn't lead you back to those old unhealthy behaviors, then you can free yourself from that cycle of self-sabotage. Now, this technique will take some practice in order to get good at. Therefore, it can be really, really helpful to track when you experience that self-sabotage and your response to it. So the best way to do this is to keep track of the day and time when you hear that inner critic trying to self-sabotage you. Write down what your inner critic says and whether or not you tried stop, challenge, choose. If you use the technique, if you practiced it, write down how it worked for you. If you didn't use the technique, well, then write down how your behavior changed. What happened when you followed what your inner critic said, or what did these actions cost you? And so what this does is it helps you to keep track of your success using this technique. So again, we want to stop, take a deep breath, challenge, say, there's my inner critic, not me. And then choose, I'm just going to choose to let that be. And I'm going to go do something that's important and healthy and really helpful for myself. So keep practicing that technique until it becomes almost automatic. So when that inner critic comes up, you stop, challenge, choose. And that's going to help you break free of that cycle of self-sabotage. So that's kind of my brief talk for tonight. Shirley, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I know that there were some questions that people had for me that I'd be more than happy to answer.
Awesome. Well, you took care of one or two of them already, which is pretty cool. And we haven't quite figured out, like, I would have loved to have this be a live Q&A, but I wasn't quite sure with this quantity of people how that would work. So I had posted a couple different places on Facebook and had people submit questions. And I suspect that by the time we get through our question list, I've got a pretty nice variety. Chances are I'll hit a lot of the questions that some of you have in the back of your minds right now anyway. One of them actually, Nick, you already kind of hit on how to talk to yourself after making a mistake. I don't know if you have anything more that you want to add to that. That whole addressing the inner critic thing is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some more to add to that. If you feel that you have found yourself in a situation where you've made a mistake and you're not quite sure what to say to yourself, something really easy to think about is, what would you tell your closest friend that made a mistake? How would you treat them? If they're like, I'm a failure, I made this mistake, I ruined everything, what would you do for them? What would you say to them? And what you want to do is say those words to yourself. You want to treat yourself like you would treat your closest friend.
We are our own harshest critics, I think. Yeah. And it's like, there's times I talk to myself in a way that I would never talk to a friend.
Exactly.
And yet somehow we give ourselves permission to do that.
Exactly.
Another question that came in here is from somebody who was asking about, talking about the connection between, we know that there's a connection between obesity and depression. And what this person wanted to know was, talk a bit about how eating better, how better nutrition, maybe nutrient-dense portion control meal replacements, how does that help or impact someone who's dealing with depression?
That's a really, really important question, because we do know that obesity and depression are known as what's called comorbid disorders, meaning they occur at the same time and they actually feed off of each other. The more depressed a person gets, the higher risk of obesity, and vice versa. So really anything that you can do to help either really can benefit the other, right? So you mentioned specifically, if we're able to focus on the obesity part of our problem by eating well, by eating every 2 to 3 hours, nutrient-dense foods, if we're choosing healthy options, healthy portions, foods that are low on the glycemic index, and all of those really, really important things, then we can actually begin to see a number of different things. One, we can begin to see increased energy, and fatigue and low energy is a major symptom of depression. It's a major issue that a lot of people face. Another thing that we see is better sleep. And actually, insomnia and difficulty with sleeping is another symptom of depression. You begin to feel better, just kind of in general, which can help to lift some of that depression. You begin to interact better with your social group, with friends and family. Maybe you feel less ashamed. You feel more energy and can participate more with them. And all of these things can help get you back into life, because that's what depression does. Depression takes you away from life and it isolates you. Depression is a very isolating disease, and it's very, very damaging and destructive in that way, because really one of the best cures we have for it is social interaction. It's really getting back to people. And that's another reason why Take Shape for Life is really great, because of the social aspect of it. You talk to your health coach, you can talk to other clients on Take Shape for Life, you can get on calls just like this. You can really be a part of a community that can begin to help alleviate depression as well.
Yeah, it's really kind of cool. Even here virtually, you know, we've got this whole room full of, I don't know however many people we've got, 65 people or so, that are all interacting. And I find that when I get off of a call like this, it's like, oh, wow, I feel great. And I don't know, I'm just kind of curious, just show of hands in the room. I know that for me, if it's been a while since I've eaten, if it's been 3-4 hours, all of a sudden I'm kind of in a funk. I'm kind of feeling tired. The whole world's feeling bad. Am I the only one that's like this? Yeah, we've got some others here too. So it's like that, you know, making sure you're getting good nutrition really does make a difference on what's going on in the head.
Absolutely. Shirley, that actually, that has a name. It's called hangry, because you're hungry and angry at the same time.
And you know, you guys don't have to raise your hands on that if that's ever happened to you. But I'm telling you, it's happened here. Yeah. Oh, no, my husband is not allowed to confess and say that, yes, that happened for me. He's over there being very helpful in that regard. Thank you so much, Cliff. This next one, actually, some of this tied in with what you said before. I'm going to read through the whole thing, though, because it does address the self-sabotage thing. And this is person, she's talking about somebody who wants to lose 40 to 50 pounds. And for this person, previous weight loss attempts work fine until she gets within 20 pounds of her healthy weight, and then she begins self-sabotage. Now, you've already addressed some of the techniques to deal with that. And she was wondering if it might possibly stem from the fact that she was raped several years ago and her uncomfortableness at being perceived as attractive and feminine. And she wants to know how to overcome this, how to reach a healthy weight, how to have her self-consciousness about her weight become a non-issue. What would you have to say for her next?
Yeah, and Shirley, I'm really glad that this one came up, because I think that's such an important thing for us to address, because regardless of the situation that causes something like this, you know, a terrible instance like a rape or abuse or trauma or something other, just a very, very serious traumatic event that happens in a person's life, it's very important for us as health coaches to understand that we don't deal with that. That is actually a referral to a mental health professional. If somebody is dealing with very serious diagnosed depression, or if they suffered abuse or trauma, or if they have a serious anxiety disorder, schizophrenia, an eating disorder such as anorexia or bulimia, if they have drug abuse or alcohol addiction, these are all things that we consider outside of our scope of practice, and they are within the scope of practice of well, technically me. I'm a licensed professional counselor and psychotherapist, so it would need to be somebody that has at least a license on my level, a master's degree in psychology or above, a doctorate, or a psychiatrist who has a medical doctor. And so whenever we get kind of in an area where we feel like, whoa, I feel a little outside of my depth here, that's a good indication that you should refer out. Now, that doesn't mean that you stop coaching. Coaching and counseling go on at the same time. It's just you have to be able to establish those boundaries. Okay, so that's something that I'm not equipped to handle, and this person is. I'm equipped to handle setting goals, helping this person make commitments, take action towards those goals, change behaviors, and all of those wonderful things that we do as health coaches, and then we refer them out for those other things. You can think of these mental health issues just like you wouldn't treat diabetes, or you wouldn't treat cancer or some other kind of medical disorder. You would refer to their physician. So that's the first part, is that whenever we're hearing a difficult issue that kind of feels outside of our depth, it probably is, and that means we just refer out, and it's as simple as that. Now, as I said before, the coaching doesn't stop. So how do we help somebody in the coaching aspect that maybe is dealing with some of this stuff? Well, this person specifically gets about 20 pounds within their healthy weight, and before they self-sabotage. This is a very, very common issue. And what's going on there is they need to begin to work deeper. They've got to go another level down, peel another layer of that onion back, because you're not going to be able to break through that barrier until you go another level deeper. What do I mean by that? It's less about dealing with the behavior change and more about dealing with the emotional stuff. And that's really where it becomes very important when we're getting close to our goal, when we're thinking about maintenance. If you have somebody that struggles, they get so close to their goal weight and then they fall off, you got to go to an emotional level with those people. What's going on here? How does it feel to get that close? What's your fear? What are you anxious about? What are you worried about? When you think to the future, what is that like for you? And really getting to the core of it is going to be very, very helpful for somebody like that. So just to repeat, one, refer to a professional, and then two, take it to that emotional level with them. And I think that you'll be able to help somebody like that.
And if I'm understanding you right, what you're saying is, okay, if this is somebody that I'm working with, I'm going to still keep supporting them as a health coach. I'm going to help keep guiding them through our program, but that whole emotional digging in to the next level is something they do with someone who's got your training or above.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
yeah.
right.
Yeah. And it's the same thing for me as a registered nurse. I certainly understand diabetes, but I am not qualified to give the medical advice to a client regarding their diabetes in the program. It just means that as a registered nurse, I know what they're talking about. And so it's always really important for us as coaches to know what's within our scope and what's not, and leave the rest to the professionals. And it's possible, Nick, that this next question fits in the same category, but Let me just throw this out here, and then we'll get into something that's a little more garden variety. There was, the question came in, it said, there's a subset of people who struggle with middle of the night eating habits. They awake from their sleep and eat. We know how to create new habits around an unhealthy habit, but the middle of the night one is a bit more challenging. What thoughts do you have on that?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Shirley, that this is another one where actually we will refer out. So this is known as night eating syndrome. Yes, it actually has a word. It is a syndrome. And it is gaining a lot of research and a lot of information behind it right now. And more than likely, it is going to be diagnosed as an eating disorder. It'll be on the same kind of wavelength, on the same spectrum as binge eating disorder, as anorexia, bulimia, things like that. It'll be on the eating disorder spectrum once it is added into what's known as our diagnostical and statistical manual. It's kind of the Bible for diagnosing mental health issues. So again, we refer out for this. So just to kind of give you some background on what on earth is going on here so we have an understanding, there's a couple of ideas floating around as to what causes this. The first theory is that it's about anxiety. And because typically individuals that wake up in the middle of the night or are eating really late at night are eating very carb-heavy foods. Think about things like breads, pastas, ice cream, cookies, chips, all those carb-heavy foods because they're known as what's anxiolytic, or they reduce anxiety. And so they reduce anxiety enough to be able to lull you into sleep. So you eat to go back to sleep. That's one theory. Another theory is that it's a disruption in the circadian rhythms of some people, which has to do with serotonin levels and the regulation of those neurotransmitters. Either way, as you can see by all of these fancy schmancy big words that I'm using, we don't handle it. And so if somebody's struggling with night eating syndrome, again, we say, that's something you should go talk to your physician about.
Okay. Okay, here's one that's a little easier, a little less complicated, I think. However, it's one that I think all of us have probably come across either for ourselves or with our clients at some point. How do you deal with boredom? And by that I mean, okay, great, I've started on this journey to health, and now the novelty's wearing off, and I'm not so sure how excited I am about the fact that I'm eating healthy, and really do I have to go to the gym, and so on. Talk to us about that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that word novelty, because that's such an important part of with losing weight. And when people lose steam, they think that they are losing motivation, but actually the novelty has worn off in the I like to think of losing weight and then maintaining weight loss as kind of like falling in love in a marriage, right? Falling in love is exciting, and it's everything is wonderful, and you're learning something new every day about this person, and aren't they amazing? And then you get married, and it's a beautiful, wonderful experience, and you love that person for the rest of your life. But marriage is hard work, because now you live with this person and you have to learn how to deal with them and divvy up the chores and things like that, and really create a life together and learn how to grow and be together as a married couple. And so that is a way that we can actually begin to deal with boredom, is reframing it as, instead of, oh my gosh, I'm just so bored with this, it's, wow, this is actually kind of maybe like the marriage phase of this. This is going to be exciting. This is a new thing for me. This is a new way of life. This is a whole new me. So when you positively reframe the boredom into a way of thinking where it's a novelty in a new way, it's an exciting thing, it's a new you, then that can help temper some of that boredom. The second thing that you can do to help temper boredom is hobbies, hobbies, hobbies. Get interested, get invested in something, make model airplanes, or join a bicycling club, or a book club, or get involved in politics, or your local church or synagogue or mosque, or get involved in something that's going to be productive, and that you can't find yourself in that idle time, because what's the old saying? Idle hands are the devil's playground, right? So when we're bored and we're idle, that's when the self-sabotage thoughts come in. That's when all those urges come in, and all those triggers and things like that. So hobbies, hobbies, hobbies. And the best way to kind of figure out a hobby is ask yourself a couple of questions. What did I used to do? Like, what did I do before I maybe got too big and I couldn't do it again? Go do that. Go do that again, right? Who cares? If it was dancing and you stopped because you were too big, there's good exercise. Go back to it, right? Or how about, what did you used to do as a child? right? Were you, let's say, really into Legos? Well, Legos may be a little too childish for you now, but hey, building something else might be really, really interesting, you know? Working on a car, for example, or joining Habitat for the Homeless, you know, something like that where you can actually use those building skills that you had as a child. And this one is probably my favorite one. What would you like to do that you've never done before? And this one is so important for finding not just like a hobby, but like a purpose, because purpose lies outside of our bubble. That's where purpose lies. You have to get outside of your bubble in order to find that passion and that purpose for something that really drives you and just gets your engine revved up and running at high speeds, right? So again, we want to reframe boredom as something else in a positive way, and then we want to hobbies. What did you used to do? What did you do as a child? Or what would you like to do that you've never done before?
Well, I love that because, you know, the thing is, I might be getting bored with eating vegetables and healthy food and looking for entertainment in like something that's really not healthy. But when I can focus in on some sort of hobby for which I need a healthy body, well, then the whole idea of eating healthy food gets considerably more entertaining. You know, if I'm busily working on swing dancing, you know, well, I sort of need my body in shape for that, right? Yeah, that's a great idea. I love it. Here's another one. What tips would you have for somebody that's working on changing this person describes it as the stuck habits, the harder ones, like eating late at night or when you're tired, or some of those habits that are just really hard to break? What do you got for us on that one?
Great question on that one, because there are habits that are just going to be harder. There are habits that are harder for certain people as well, specifically. And a lot of that has to do with personality and genetics and how we're raised, and really a lot of things that we don't have control over. Sometimes there are just harder habits, and I think this person referred to them as the stuck habits, which is so interesting because there's actually a theory called sticky habits, which is about we want to create habits that are sticky so they stick around for a long time. So whether or not they're a difficult habit to break or an easier habit to break, all habits work the exact same way. Whether it's biting your nails or a smoking addiction, all habits work the exact same way. They have 4 components: a cue, an urge, a routine, and a reward. So the cue is like the trigger that kicks everything off, right? And the cue triggers the urge, which is the second piece. And the urge is like the craving or the desire. It's that want that you feel kind of in your gut, right? So it's that desire to go do the thing. Then third component is the routine. Well, that's the behavior you do, whatever it is. And then reward. That reward comes in 2 varieties: pleasure or relief. So it either makes you feel good or it makes you feel not bad, right? So I'm going to give you an example so we can understand this. So let's say the habit is nighttime eating. Cue, evening time, at home, maybe in front of the TV. Urge, craving for ice cream. Routine, go to the fridge, open up the freezer, get out the ice cream and eat it. Reward, feels good, tastes good, everybody loves ice cream, right? Okay, so I actually did the first part of the way to change a habit. I identified the 4 components. That's the first step. I break down the habit into the 4 components. What's the cue? What's the urge that I feel? What's the routine that I do? And what reward do I get from it? Then, once you have everything labeled and identified, that's called diagnosing the habit, you can do 2 things. 3 things. You can begin to eliminate cues, right? So that means get rid of triggers. So that might mean not watching television in the evening time. Or it might mean just staying out of the kitchen, staying away from it, going in another room or a different level of your house or something like that. You can eliminate cues and triggers. Second thing that you can do is you can learn to deal with your urges. Now, that's a little bit more complicated, and we don't have time to really get into it today. But I will tell you that there are many, many techniques for dealing with urges, and I'll just throw one out there that works very well. stop, challenge, choose. There's a very effective way to deal with urges, right? And then that actually fits into the final component of this, and that's finding what's known as an alternative routine, or an alternate routine that provides a similar reward. So you get rid of triggers, get rid of all the cues that you can, learn how to deal with the urge or the craving, and then you change what you do. So in this scenario, instead of going to the kitchen and eating the ice cream, you would go for a walk that would also provide you pleasure. You would go to the phone and call a friend, call your mom, call your health coach, or something like that, that makes you feel really good. Or perhaps you're a less a social person, you're more of an introvert. Go read a book, go pick up your holy book if you're religious or spiritual. Meditate. One of the things that my wife and I love to do is we love incense. We love to have a lot of wonderful smells. We use essential oils. We really love positive and uplifting smells. So that's one thing that we do in order to kind of help with our stress and things like that. So again, what you want to do here is those really stuck habits, they work exactly the same way as every other habit. Identify the 4 components: cue, urge, routine, reward. Eliminate as many cues and triggers as you can. Learn to deal with your urges, stop, challenge, choose, and then change what you do. Change the routine, and make sure it's something that you like, though. That's very, very important. Make sure the routine is something that you like, because if you don't like running and you choose that as your routine, it's not going to work. It has to be something that you like to. So I know that was kind of a long answer to that one, but it's a very important one to learn how to change.
Well, and it's a great one, and it's actually the one question that we don't have time for tonight was about talking about stress eating, and I know that's been addressed in some previous Habits of Health calls, but some of the things you just said also really apply to that stress eating thing. I do need to wrap this call up just of deference to the doctor's call that's coming up after this, but if you guys didn't get all this written down on notes, like, I was busily taking notes on this. If you talk to the person who referred you to this call, they can get you in touch with Dr. Anderson's ebook. It is something that we can provide to you for free. It's called Stop, Challenge, Choose. And in that, he covers some of the same content, how Nick kept talking about this, the cue, urge, reward, routine and reward, and learning how to create the new habits. That's covered in that ebook in more depth than what we can possibly do in this call. So feel free to check that out. Nikki, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the call. To you and to your little buddy whose name I totally forget. Is he still there?
Matthew, no, my wife has him now.
Okay, well, tell Matthew thank you for joining us on the call. Those of you that missed meeting his dog earlier, that's what happens when you show up on the call late. You miss cool stuff at the beginning. Anyway, thank you so much for being on the call. For those of you that are used to calling in on these calls on a regular basis, and I hope you are, next, the home office informs me that next week there will be no Habits of Health call because of the Christmas holiday. So enjoy the time with your families. And then as far as I know, the Habits of Health call will return the following Wednesday on the 30th, unless I am misinformed on that. If you want to find more Habits of Health support call recordings, you can go to your coach's website, or if you don't have a coach, talk to the person who suggests you listen to this call. Ask them how to access this. When you go to the website, click on Tools and Support, and then on Weekly Support Calls, you'll find the recording of this call will be posted there for a while, and you'll find other ones as well. So please be sure to come back and join us again soon. Thanks so much for taking the time to be on the call. Everybody, a round of applause for Nick for taking the time to be on the call. Thank you so much, Nick, and thanks to all of you all. Have a great evening and a healthy week.